Hi, Rebecca. I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. How are you?
I'm really happy to speak to you. I'm excited. The show comes out today at last.
Very exciting. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief intro, though, for people who perhaps don't know anything about it yet. What can they expect from the following events or a pack of flies? It's a bit of a mouthful to say.
Yeah, the following events are based on A Pack of Lies, is the story of two very, very different women and the con man that they have in common. It's a dark, comedic, twisting thriller, which is hopefully going to be the new binge watch that everyone's into.
And I was reading a bit about kind of, when the writers were thinking about the story. I mean, it did feel like there was kind of a whole like barrage of like documentaries and films, about this concept of like the con man. And, even think, things like the Tinder Swindler was one of the documentaries. But then even if you cast your mind back, maybe, to Catch Me If You Can or Tangent Miss Ripley, it's something that's definitely been there in the culture or in our minds, but maybe even more so recently. So when you first read that script, what was the appeal for you?
Well, initially, like you, I'd seen so much stuff where that con man is kind of glamorized. So I was expecting that. And on reading the script, I just kept going and going. And I thought, whoever gets this part is the luckiest actress in the country. That was my first thought. And my second thought was that I just needed to know what happened next. I had to read it all. I couldn't wait to see it, even if I didn't get to be in it. And then lucky me, I did get to be in it. And I still feel that way.
And the thing that it really strikes me watching it is it can be, I mean, of course, it can be a sensitive subject, it can be quite a bleak subject, but there's a certain tone to the show, which is kind of balancing some of that and the kind of thriller aspects with kind of this quite empowering other side to it, and especially seeing how your character and the other character kind of like, come together. So was that also something that's quite good to kind of bring out, the balance in tone?
Well, you've hit upon it. This is not a misery memoir about being a victim deliberately, because what it's trying to do is to give the audience the experience of being a victim, what it's like to feel lied to feel gaslighted, to not know the difference between what is true and what is false. And I just found it all incredibly fresh and new. And these artistic elements that were in the script, so many details. Penelope and Ginny Skinner, you can tell that they love TV and film and novels and music because it's all there. It's packed in, it's incredibly detailed, nothing's there for no reason. And I think even watching it quite a few times, as I have now, there's still more that I'm seeing.
And how did you see your character specifically? Because, she's lacking confidence, isn't she? And there's something that I felt was so relatable, when she's got kind of, because she's in this assistant role and she's being barked at to do this, that, and the other. And she seems to be getting it from all sides. And you play that so well, and we've all sort of felt like that at different moments. So how did you kind of see her and prepare to play her?
Well, I connected as a woman to this feeling of not feeling done yet, not feeling like you've shown your potential or shown what you're capable of. I think as we get older, we feel like time is running out. We shouldn't feel like that, but we do. So I connected immediately with that, and the assumptions made around her class and her intelligence that she would be a likely victim, that this is someone it would happen to. And the more I saw of what she'd been through, this detail, which was just so harrowing and upsetting, but suddenly another element where the injustice of what's happened spurs her on to take action. And I found that very believable.
And what about this amazing, rest of your cast? I mean, Alistair, I think, really leans into his character so perfectly. And then you're kind of also bouncing off Marianne, who's kind of a bit of an opposite. She's more confident in herself and who she is. So they kind of play off each other. And even Romola Garai, I think, as your boss, just, I mean, the accent she does and everything, she just gets it spot on.
She's so perfect, isn't she? I love seeing Romola in that part because we see her leading these incredible shows we have over the years. She's such a beacon of light for actors everywhere, but great to see her being so funny because she does it with great panache and great ease, I have to say. But with Marianne and I, the dynamic between these two women, again, is not something that you see very often. Yes, they're going to come together, but they're not going to be best friends. And one of the things I love about their relationship is they don't feel they need to please each other or be pleasing to each other. They are themselves, and that's what they're bringing to this to take this guy down.
And in terms of Alistair's character, I mean, I don't think he's not specifically a composite of, common that have existed, but you feel like it's taking from, different elements, like you said, like, kind of other films that we've seen. What was it like seeing him bring that character to life?
Well, he's a very nice man in real life. Most people don't need me to tell them that. He's a lovely person. And we actually met, interestingly, in July 2005, which is when Alice and Robbie got married. So we have that history. It's already in place and we get on very, very well. So we had to make a decision. And the decision was that we would keep our distance when we were filming, just so that we could create a tension that, to be honest, between us is not there. And it was a really good decision. I loved working with him. As the series progresses, viewers will see that those scenes really do take a dark, dark twist. And it was important to be with someone that I felt safe with. And I think we both enjoyed those scenes. We could take risks. And yeah, I think what he's done in the show is create a horror. I think someone who we love to hate. And that's down to him and his talent.
And in the making of it, did you have a favorite scene or one that you found more challenging? I guess you don't want to give too much about and worry about the direction it goes in, but if there's anything you can say about your favorite moment or most difficult.
Okay, well, I can't have a favorite because I'm not built like that. I've got about 30 favorites. So I will try and give you some highlights, which is I love the family scenes because I loved what those incredible actors did. They explained so much about Alice and her world by their beautiful performances and those reactions to her. And as the series progresses, visually, what happens to us as characters and certain costume choices, shall we say, that we get to take, I cannot think of a job that I've ever had that has required such costumes for me. And I absolutely love them. And again, because they're not just there for a gimmick. They've all been thought through. There's always a literary nod or a connection to the story, or in the case of the cape, we're making a feminist point about how, women can put on a great big pink cape and still be invisible in society as they move around. So I loved all those details. Yeah.
And did it even, I guess, you sort of notice all these things about the sets and the costumes and everything when you're filming, but perhaps when you saw the finished product back, was it even more kind of, the soundtrack's amazing and it kind of adds to the tone and it places like the comedy as well. When you saw the finished product, was it really amazing?
I was so excited because, look, the reason you get into TV, if you're going to be happy, is that it's a team sport. And it's not just me, it's an incredible cast and crew of people, our composer, Arthur Sharp, everybody brings something to it. And it's only in that moment when you see it for the first time, do you see everybody's work. But also in real life, I'm a wife and a mom, and I was so happy that we'd made something that would land right at the end of the summer holidays when we're all absolutely exhausted and need to get into and need some escapism. And to be part of that is very exciting.
And in terms of the takeaways, I mean, like you say, you're kind of just on the edge of your seat, in that sort of thriller way, not knowing which way it's going to go. Yeah. But it is, and dealing with, some important themes. And perhaps by presenting it less in this sort of very serious way, it allows people to kind of think about these issues and think about the impact of, being gaslit, always convinced that your opinion's, not worthy of anything, that your recollection of events is, somehow not valid. And maybe that can be important for people to think about. So it might be some issues people can really take away from watching it.
Yeah, Sarah, you're absolutely right. I think when we see other ways of telling stories like this, we can sit back as a viewer. Oh, I know what this is. Oh, okay. And I'm just going to watch this fantastic acting. In the case of this, we're giving you the experience of being a victim. So sometimes you're unsure of what's going on and who's telling the truth. And there's a shifting of sides. And, you know, Alice is a good person, but as a result of experiencing this man in her life, she does start to behave in ways that you might not agree with, but you do understand. There's so many details that are here because of the scope of its kind of cinematic qualities. They've not been done before, and that's really exciting because we're putting forward something that's original and different and brave.
And it is really exciting, I think, to see these kind of female characters as well, where it is just like something you haven't seen before. And it does feel like sometimes TV actually opens up so opportunities, maybe more so than even in the film world, for different ways of telling these sorts of stories. So does it feel like there's a lot more opportunity now for actresses?
Yes, and I hope that keeps going. There's a particular moment in episode 5, and again, I've got to try to describe this to you without ruining that moment. But Marianne's character starts to describe what might happen to Rob versus what might happen to the women in the story. And as she does this, we as the viewer start to think, actually, she's absolutely right. The way men are served in society, on television, in newspapers, versus the way women are served, and how certainly the victims of these crimes can be very easily dismissed as, you know, the gold digger, or she had it coming, and we're not holding back on presenting a different and more three-dimensional view of the victim experience, I think.
Absolutely. And can you quickly tell us what you might be working on next? I know you've done so many different types of roles and comedy and, you know, more drama. So, you know, what have you got coming up next?
Do you know what? I have been so focused on this that I actually haven't thought about what's next. And I think it's probably quite refreshing for me to say, do you know what? Nothing's lined up. I just want to see this baby safely on that iPlayer tonight and see what happens. But it's exciting. I'm really pleased this piece of work is out there for me.
Amazing. Yeah, well, I can't wait for everyone to get stuck into it. I'm sure everyone's going to be absolutely desperate to see right till the end.